All right, welcome back, everybody. And it is time for another versions episode of Tech Transfer Insights. So we're going to use AI to do a selection again. Here's the three we did last time. I'm just going to ask you to please select different three. See how good Gemini is at understanding that request. John Hopkins, MIT, and Tulane. All right, let's go take a look at what each of those have. All right, so first up we have John Hopkins. They're based out of Maryland. And one of the things that I do want to point out is they have an applied physics lab, which is apparently a separate thing from the normal university. So right now we are just looking at the normal university tech transfer page, but the applied physics lab also has 430 something technologies on its own tech transfer page. So John Hopkins actually has, I believe, two different ones. But this was one that caught my eye when looking through their technology list. In this case, it is called negative carbon cement. Uh, so part of the reason for that is I understand that the cement industry is one of the biggest carbon sources, and especially in terms of the overall construction industry. And there's been multiple efforts over the past few years to try to lower or eliminate the carbon sources associated with cement manufacturing. So, this is apparently a methodology for taking the carbon dioxide that's created as part of the cement manufacturing process and essentially turning it into recaptured solid carbon and putting it into the cement itself. So it's actually a way of getting like literally taking carbon dioxide, even potentially out of the air, and storing it in cement. Um, they've apparently validated it in a lab, which I'm assuming is a relatively small scale, but they also filed a patent here last year. Uh, but I thought this was interesting, partially because I know that there is a major push for technologies based around the carbon neutrality, or in this case, carbon uh, sequestration in cement and cement manufacturing. And assuming that the material itself is as good as regular cement, this could be a major boost to the environmental sustainability of the construction industry. So I thought this one was particularly interesting. I guess you can reach out to Ms. Schweier and good job to these inventors for their idea pertaining to how to use cement as a carbon sequestration technique. All right, so next up, I believe we have MIT. All right, next up we have the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, one of the most well-regarded technical universities in the world. And according to their overall page, they have something like 1,600 patents currently available to license, which is, you know, feeds into the idea of there's so much potential just sitting out there waiting to be utilized by somebody. But I will also say that their technology transfer portal is not particularly enlightening. So I did find something that I thought was interesting. So um, this looks like a technology based around a household level desalination process, which I think is interesting for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that desalination is going to be more and more important as more and more people end up being reliant on seawater for their source of drinking water. But what I don't entirely understand is what exactly it is. Because all that MIT has on all of their technologies in terms of the web page is just the categories. So, these are mechanical engineers, the doctors, Winter and Bray. uh, but also just a very generic name of a patent that whenever you look this up on Google Scholar, it doesn't even really show you anything. There is a license button here, which my assumption is that the technology managers have more insight. But even if you click this download PDF, all it does is download a web page of, or like a PDF of this web page. So there's not a whole lot of information about this technology or any of their technologies, any of their 1600 technologies on these web pages. But undeniably, MIT is probably one of the most uh, prolific inventing schools in the world. So there's probably something for pretty much any industry and pretty much any uh, interest type. There were things from like monoclonal antibodies all the way up through computer science algorithms on the list here. But I've also, if I remember correctly, in my past experience in trying to talk to MIT's tech transfer team, they were uh, kind of closed. Like they seem to have their own kind of infrastructure in Boston, like entrepreneurs and people who are tied into their ecosystem, that they seem less inclined to work with people who they didn't already know. That might have changed in the last 5 years since I talked to them, but I do remember it being a little bit more of a, like a closed community in the Boston area of entrepreneurs and inventors that work specifically with MIT itself. But if you're interested, I'm sure you can click on the license button here and get some information on something like this water desalination tool that could be used in someone's home. So, next up, I believe we had, I forgot. Oh, Tulane. Next one up is Tulane. All right, let's go find something from them. All right, so Tulane is the first university that we'll see using Flintbox, which is a service that kind of provides database warehousing and I don't know, a GUI application, something like that, for universities and other research labs that don't want to necessarily develop their own websites. So we'll be seeing Flintbox in various guises over the course of the coming weeks that we're doing this. Although in this case they have Tulane's nice dark green color that goes along with their branding. So I thought this one was particularly interesting because my wife is a nurse practitioner, and I know that she, as part of her nursing license, has to continually prove that she doesn't have latent tuberculosis. And the process of getting that assessment done seems onerous. So when I saw that they have a basically an in situ TB test that takes less than 24 hours and only requires a blood stick or not a blood draw, but a finger stick. I thought that was particularly interesting, given that this is a requirement of so like however many hundreds of thousands of nurses there are throughout the U.S. The if this has the kind of advantages that it seems to, that could be a very interesting use case. Um, in here it says, it only takes 6 hours. That's pretty good. It needs to be optimized for clinical use. So obviously there's still some more testing, uh, but it is a T cell based test, which is, I'm not sure how common that is. In any case, there's a very obvious need for tuberculosis tests, and I thought this one was interesting because it seems to have some advantages over other ones that I already understand the process for, and this is a very widely used test. So, if you're interested in learning more about this one, I think what do they have? They actually don't have the individual contact person, but there is contact and share and all that kind of stuff here. for getting in touch with Tulane's tech transfer department. This was one that stood out to me, at least on the first page of their technology list. So I think that is going to wrap it up for this week. If you're interested in any of the technologies that I showed here, I'll leave links in the description to each of them. It also will then allow you to access the rest of the lists from those web pages. If you got any comments or thoughts about any of them, or ideas or other use cases you could think for the TB test, the desalinization process, or the negative carbon cement, I would very much like to hear about it in the comments. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I'm trying to come up with some pithy outro to, tie all these videos together with, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. Maybe I'll come up with something the more I do these. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next week.